The gleaming alien ship broke through Earth's atmosphere on a clear Tuesday morning, trailing blue fire as it descended. Television broadcasts worldwide interrupted their programming to show the vessel's approach. It was unlike anything humans had built, sleek, almost organic in its design, with a surface that seemed to ripple like water despite being clearly metallic. Commander June of Earth's United Defense Force stood rigid on the landing pad, surrounded by representatives from every major nation. His hand rested near his sidearm, though he knew it would be useless against visitors who could cross the stars. "Stay calm," he muttered to himself. "Just stay calm." The ship settled onto the concrete with surprising gentleness. For nearly 2 minutes, nothing happened. The gathered diplomats exchanged nervous glances. Then, without warning or sound, an opening appeared in the ship's side. 3 figures emerged. They walked on 2 legs like humans, but the similarities ended there. Their skin shimmered with colors that shifted with each movement. Their eyes, 4 per being, blinked independently of one another. "I am Envoy Tarak of the Galactic Hegemony," the central figure announced in perfect English, though its mouth made movements that didn't match the words. Some kind of translator technology, June realized. The world watched as President Moon stepped forward. "On behalf of Earth, we welcome you." The alien made a gesture that might have been dismissive. "The hegemony has observed your world for decades. Your technological progress has triggered our protocols for integration." "Integration?" President Moon asked. "Your species will be granted protectorate status. You will provide resources and labor to the hegemony. In exchange, you will receive protection and limited access to our technology." The gathered humans fell silent. This wasn't a greeting. It was a demand. Defense Minister Day whispered to Commander June, "This is not a diplomatic mission." June nodded slightly. His years of military training had taught him to recognize a threat when he heard one. "Perhaps we could discuss terms of a mutual alliance instead?" President Moon suggested carefully. The aliens' colors darkened. "The hegemony does not form alliances with pre-spacefaring civilizations. Your choice is simple: accept our protection or face correction. You have 3 Earth cycles to decide." The envoy turned back toward its ship. "And if we refuse?" President Moon called out. The alien paused. The last species that refused now inhabits a world of ash. Their choice was unwise. It disappeared into the ship, which sealed itself without a seam. Within hours, the United Nations convened an emergency session. The room buzzed with angry voices and frightened whispers. "They can't just demand our submission," shouted the representative from Brazil. "Did you see their technology?" countered another diplomat. "We have no defense against them." Commander June was summoned to give his assessment. He stood before the assembly, his face grim. "From what our instruments could detect, their ship possesses energy weapons far beyond our capabilities. A single vessel could likely destroy our largest cities with minimal effort," he reported. Dr. Su, Earth's leading physicist, stepped forward next. "Their ship's hull is made of materials we cannot even identify. Our most powerful weapons would be useless against them." The Secretary General looked grave. "And if this is just one ship from their empire? Then we are severely outmatched," Commander June finished. As the arguments continued, Commander June received an urgent message on his secure device. He quietly excused himself and made his way to a private room. The face on the screen belonged to Director Min, head of a department so secret that most world leaders didn't know it existed. "The Omega Protocol has been authorized," Director Min said without preamble. "The Black Fleet is being activated." June felt his heart rate quicken. "After all these years? Are we certain?" "Yes. The project that began when we found that crashed ship in the Mariana Trench 20 years ago, it's time to use it. Report to Facility Deep Blue immediately. Admiral Huan is assembling the command team." When June arrived at the underwater base 6 hours later, he found controlled chaos. Scientists and military personnel rushed through corridors carved into the ocean floor. Admiral Huan met him at the observation deck. Through the massive window, June saw them for the first time outside of classified photographs, 12 vessels of human construction but alien design. Black as the deep ocean around them, their surfaces seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. "The Black Fleet," Admiral Huan said quietly. "Earth's secret weapon. Built from technology they don't know we have." June watched as lights began to appear on the ships. Will it be enough? We're about to find out. 20 years before the aliens came to Earth, Dr. Jean stood on the deck of a research ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Rain poured down his face as he stared at the radar screen. Something massive had been detected at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the deepest part of all Earth's oceans. "It's not natural," he told Captain Tay, who looked skeptical. "No rock formation has these kinds of angles." 3 days later, the remote submarine sent back the first images. The research team fell silent as they gathered around the screens. Half buried in the ocean floor lay what could only be a spacecraft. It was clearly damaged, with a massive hole torn in one side, but unmistakably artificial. "It's not one of ours," Captain Tay whispered. Within hours, military ships appeared on the horizon. The scientists were sworn to secrecy and the site was declared restricted. Now, 2 decades later, Admiral Yoon walked through the underwater base known as Deep Blue. Carved into the rock beneath the Pacific, it had been built specifically to house humanity's greatest secret. Through massive reinforced windows, she could see the results of 20 years of reverse engineering. The Black Fleet. 12 ships hung in the massive underwater construction bay. Unlike the bright white of NASA's spacecraft or the utilitarian gray of military vessels, these ships were midnight black. Their surfaces seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their shapes were unlike any human aircraft, with smooth curves and no visible engines. "Beautiful, aren't they?" asked Chief Engineer Sun, joining the Admiral at the window. Admiral Yoon nodded. "And they work?" "Better than we ever hoped. The quantum displacement drive we reverse engineered from the crashed ship functions perfectly. They can travel faster than light without creating any detectable emissions." The Admiral had read the reports, but seeing the fleet in person was different. "And the weapons systems?" Engineer Sun's expression grew serious. "The gravity lance is devastating. It can create a localized distortion in spacetime that tears apart anything in its path. We've only tested it at minimal power, but theoretical models suggest it could destroy a city-sized target instantly." A message came through on Admiral Yoon's communicator. "The World Security Council is assembled. They're waiting for your briefing." An hour later, Admiral Yoon stood in front of the most powerful people on Earth. The council chamber was built deep underground, safe from alien surveillance. On screens around the room, leaders who couldn't attend in person watched with grim expressions. "The Black Fleet represents humanity's only technological advantage," Admiral Yoon explained. "For 20 years, we've kept this program absolutely secret, even from most world governments." "How is that possible?" demanded one leader. "The resources required were disguised as deep-sea mining operations, space telescope funding, and a dozen other cover stories," explained Director Wu, head of the project's security. "No single nation could have achieved this alone, which is why the project drew resources from multiple countries without their full knowledge." "That's illegal," someone protested. "It's why we're still free," Director Wu countered calmly. Admiral Yoon projected images of the fleet. 12 ships, each with a crew of 20. They use technology that makes them invisible to conventional detection methods. They can travel between Earth and Mars in minutes. Their weapons systems are significant. Can they defeat the hegemony? President Moon asked the question everyone was thinking. Admiral Yoon answered carefully. In a direct battle against their entire empire? No. But that's not our strategy. The hegemony doesn't know about the Black Fleet. Our advantage is surprise, not numbers. Commander June stepped forward. We've been analyzing the alien vessel that landed. They're advanced, but not omniscient. They believe we have no spacefaring capability beyond our primitive rockets. This assumption is our greatest weapon. Admiral Yoon nodded. We propose Operation Shadow Strike. While Earth appears to negotiate with the hegemony, the Black Fleet will deploy to key strategic locations. We'll target their communication systems and command vessels. Without those, their fleet becomes disorganized. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, one of the leaders spoke. You're suggesting we go to war with an advanced alien civilization that spans thousands of worlds? No, Admiral Yoon replied. I'm suggesting we show them that enslaving humanity will cost more than they're willing to pay. A vote was called. The decision was unanimous. Operation Shadow Strike was approved. As Admiral Yoon left the chamber, Commander June fell into step beside her. How much are you telling the crews? He asked quietly. Admiral Yoon's face was grim. Everything. They deserve to know what's at stake. In 3 days, we either save Earth or become the first casualties in a war we can't win. Ambassador Mun smiled pleasantly at the hegemony representatives across the large wooden table. She had been chosen for her calm demeanor and diplomatic experience. Today, her job was simple but crucial: waste time. As you understand, our planet has many different nations and cultures, she explained to the alien delegates. Our decision-making process is complicated. We need more time to reach consensus. The lead alien, Envoy Tarak, made a gesture that humans had learned indicated impatience. Your internal governance is inefficient. This is why younger species benefit from hegemony guidance. Perhaps, Ambassador Mun nodded respectfully. But it is our way. We request an extension of 3 more Earth cycles to properly consult with all major governments. While the aliens believed humans were merely stalling out of fear and indecision, a very different scene was unfolding far beyond Earth's atmosphere. The Black Fleet moved silently through the darkness of space. Unlike conventional spacecraft, these vessels created no exhaust plume, no radiation signature, and reflected no radar. Their quantum displacement drives bent space slightly around them, making them nearly impossible to detect. On the bridge of the flagship Phantom, Captain Du studied the tactical display. The ship's advanced sensors had mapped the positions of 17 hegemony vessels throughout the solar system. Most were in holding patterns, waiting for Earth's submission. Status report, he ordered. Lieutenant Gill turned from her console. All systems nominal, Captain. Quantum stealth functioning at optimal levels. No indication that hegemony sensors have detected us. And the other ships? All in position, sir. Shadow, Wraith, and Spectre are near Jupiter's orbit. Ghost, Phantom, and Whisper are approaching Mars. The remaining 6 vessels are maintaining position in the asteroid belt. Captain Du nodded, satisfied. The plan was working so far. The hegemony believed they were dealing with a primitive species barely capable of reaching their own moon. They had no idea that 12 advanced warships were already moving into attack positions. Message from Admiral Yoon, Lieutenant Gill announced. Operation Shadow Strike proceeds to Phase 2. Back on Earth, in the underwater base Deep Blue, Admiral Yoon and Commander June studied the real-time tactical display showing the positions of all vessels in the solar system. The hegemony fleet is structured exactly as we predicted, Commander June observed. Their command and control systems are centralized through these 3 relay stations. He pointed to blinking points on the display. Admiral Yoon nodded. And if we take those out simultaneously, their fleet becomes disorganized. They lose coordination. Lieutenant Bay burst into the room, excitement clear on his face despite his attempt at military composure. Admiral, Intelligence Division has a breakthrough. He placed a data pad on the table. We've been analyzing the communications between hegemony ships. There's a pattern to their shield modulation. Every 14 minutes, their defensive systems cycle through a reset sequence. How long does the reset take? Admiral Yoon asked. 3 seconds. During that time, their shields are at minimum power. Commander June's eyes widened. That's our window. Exactly, Lieutenant Bay continued. If we time our gravity lance strikes to hit during those 3 seconds, we can penetrate their defenses with much less power. Admiral Yoon immediately opened a secure channel to the fleet. Captain Du, we have new tactical data. Prepare for updated strike parameters. In the diplomatic chamber, Ambassador Mun continued her carefully orchestrated delay. Perhaps a tour of some of Earth's cultural sites would help you understand our decision-making processes better? We have ancient temples that have stood for thousands of years. The alien envoy's colors shifted in what humans had learned indicated annoyance. Your architectural achievements are irrelevant to this discussion. Of course, she bowed slightly. Then perhaps you could explain more about the benefits of joining the hegemony? Our leaders are particularly concerned about maintaining our cultural autonomy. As she kept the aliens engaged in pointless diplomatic circles, military leaders around the world were quietly mobilizing their forces. Not for a hopeless direct confrontation, but for what would appear to be one. In orbit, Earth's primitive satellites and defense platforms began powering up. Old space stations adjusted their positions slightly. It would look to the hegemony like Earth was preparing a pitiful defense, exactly what they would expect from a frightened primitive species. In reality, it was all a distraction. On the Phantom, Captain Du received the final attack coordinates. All ships, synchronize attack clocks. Target acquisition complete. We strike in 6 hours. He looked at the image of Earth on his viewscreen, beautiful and blue. The hegemony thinks they're dealing with a helpless world, he said quietly. They're about to learn that humanity doesn't submit. Lieutenant Gill nodded. And we don't fight fair. The hegemony fleet commander Vexlar relaxed in his command chair, watching Earth's primitive satellites adjust their positions on his viewscreen. The movement was clumsy and predictable, exactly what he expected from a species only recently emerged from their atmosphere. They appear to be arranging some form of defensive posture, his second-in-command reported. Vexlar made a dismissive gesture with his upper limbs. Typical pre-integration behavior. They will posture and threaten before accepting reality. Should we power weapons systems? No need. Their most advanced weapons can't even penetrate our secondary shields. Vexlar's skin rippled with amusement colors. Let them feel they're doing something meaningful. It makes the submission easier later. What the hegemony commander couldn't see, despite his advanced technology, were the 12 black fleet vessels now in position throughout the solar system. The quantum stealth systems that human engineers had reversed engineered from the crashed alien ship worked perfectly. On the bridge of the Phantom, Captain Du watched the timer counting down. His crew sat at their stations, faces grim with determination. They had trained for years for this moment, though none had truly believed it would come. 2 minutes to synchronized attack, Lieutenant Gill announced, her voice steady despite the tension. Captain Du opened the fleet-wide communication channel. All ships confirm final positions. One by one, the captains of the 11 other vessels reported in. All were in position, weapons locked on their assigned targets. Remember, Captain Du told his crew, timing is everything. Our gravity lances must hit precisely during their shield reset. We'll only get one chance at surprise. On Earth, a very different scene was unfolding. Military forces worldwide launched what appeared to be a coordinated but ultimately futile defense. Fighter jets screamed into the sky, despite having no hope of reaching orbit. Missile systems targeted the alien ships, though everyone knew they would be ineffective. To the hegemony, it looked like the desperate last stand of a primitive species. Ambassador Mun, still in negotiations with the hegemony representatives, received a subtle signal from her aide. The operation was beginning. Perhaps, she suggested to the aliens, we should pause our discussion and observe what's happening. It seems some of our military leaders are acting without authorization. The lead envoy's colors shifted to what humans had learned indicated amused superiority. By all means. The futility of resistance is often the final lesson before acceptance. In deep space, Captain Du watched the countdown reach 0. Shield cycles detected, Lieutenant Gill reported. 3, 2, 1. Mark. All ships, fire! Captain Du ordered. Across the solar system, 12 gravity lances activated simultaneously. Unlike conventional weapons that produced visible energy beams, the lances created invisible distortions in spacetime itself. There was no warning, no light show, nothing to alert the targets until it was too late. The hegemony's 3 main communication relay stations, positioned at strategic points throughout the solar system, were struck precisely during their 3-second shield reset. The gravity distortions tore through the temporarily weakened defenses and ripped the stations apart from the inside out. In an instant, the hegemony fleet lost all coordinated communication. Commander Vexlar was thrown from his chair as warnings screamed across his command console. "What's happening?" he demanded. "Communication relays are gone," his officer reported in panic. "All of them, simultaneously." "Impossible." There was nothing on sensors. Vexlar's skin flashed danger colors. "Activate emergency protocols. Full defensive posture." But the Black Fleet was already executing Phase 2 of the attack. 4 ships targeted the hegemony's secondary command vessels, again timing their strikes perfectly with the shield reset cycles. Captain Du's ship, the Phantom, moved silently toward the hegemony flagship itself. No alarms sounded on the alien vessel as the black ship approached. No warnings triggered. To all their sensors, nothing was there. "Lock on their bridge section," Captain Du ordered. "Minimum power setting. We want to disable, not destroy." "Target locked," Lieutenant Gill confirmed. Shield cycle in 5 seconds. On the hegemony flagship, Vexlar was desperately trying to regain control of his scattered fleet. "Send runners to the support vessels," he ordered, reverting to ancient communication methods now that their advanced systems were disabled. "We need to." The gravity lance hit with precision. Unlike the communication relays, the flagship wasn't destroyed. Instead, the carefully calibrated distortion field disabled its power systems and command centers while leaving life support intact. Vexlar found himself in darkness as every system on his bridge shut down simultaneously. "Emergency power," he demanded. Not responding, came the frightened reply. "Something's distorting the energy distribution networks." For the first time in his long military career, Vexlar felt fear. Something impossible was happening. Something outside hegemony experience. On Earth, Ambassador Munn watched calmly as the hegemony envoy received urgent communications. The alien's colors shifted rapidly to patterns humans had never seen before. "What is happening?" she asked innocently. The envoy didn't answer. It simply stared at her with all 4 eyes, seeing humans and Earth very differently than before. The United Nations Assembly Hall had never been so quiet. Humans and aliens sat facing each other across the wide table. On one side, Ambassador Munn and Admiral Yoon led the Earth delegation. On the other, Supreme Executor Kelvan of the hegemony sat rigidly, his skin colors muted in what humans now understood was an expression of extreme caution. 3 days had passed since the Black Fleet's attack. The hegemony's command structure had been shattered. Without their communication relays, their ships had been unable to coordinate. Without their flagship, they had no central leadership. What should have been an easy subjugation had turned into an unprecedented defeat. "Let us be clear," Admiral Yoon said, breaking the silence. "Earth does not seek war with the hegemony. We simply refuse to be slaves." Kelvan's translator converted his clicks and whistles into English. "The hegemony does not recognize Earth as an equal. Your technology is still primitive in most areas." "Except for the areas where it isn't," Admiral Yoon replied calmly. "Our Black Fleet proved that." The hegemony leader's colors darkened. "A single tactical victory does not change galactic reality. The hegemony controls thousands of star systems." "And yet," Ambassador Munn interjected softly, "your fleet in our system is in disarray. Your flagship is disabled. Your communication network is destroyed." She smiled pleasantly. "Perhaps reality has already changed." Before Kelvan could respond, the doors to the assembly hall opened. Captain Du entered with a small group of figures that caused the hegemony delegation to flash colors of shock. The newcomers were clearly aliens, but not hegemony species. Some walked on 4 legs, others floated slightly above the ground, but all wore simple black uniforms matching those of the Earth officers. Allow me to introduce representatives from Proxima Centauri, Tau Ceti, and the Sirius system, Captain Du announced. Former hegemony subject worlds who have pledged alliance with Earth. Kelvan rose halfway from his seat, colors flashing in patterns that the translators couldn't process. When he finally spoke, his voice was strained. This is impossible. These systems are under hegemony control. A tall, slender alien with silver skin stepped forward. Not anymore. When Earth proved the hegemony could be defeated, our resistance movements took control of our worlds. We have formed what we call the Free Systems Alliance. Admiral Yoon handed a data tablet to Kelvan. These are our terms. Earth will not submit to the hegemony. Instead, we propose a peace treaty between equals. Kelvan's colors shifted rapidly as he read the document. This is unprecedented. So is the Black Fleet, Admiral Yoon replied. And so is this alliance. In orbit above Earth, the Black Fleet ships had emerged from stealth mode, now visible to all. They patrolled alongside vessels from the newly liberated worlds, ships that had once served the hegemony but now flew different colors. On the Phantom, Lieutenant Gill monitored communications from across the sector. Reports coming in from 7 more systems, Captain. They've overthrown their hegemony governors. Captain Du nodded. The ripple effect is spreading faster than we anticipated. Sir, we're receiving a direct transmission from the Kavari system. Their resistance leaders are requesting our assistance. Captain Du considered this. The Kavari system was much farther out, deeper in hegemony territory. Sending ships there would be risky. But the momentum of liberation was building. Tell Admiral Yoon. This will need to be discussed with the Alliance. Back in the assembly hall, negotiations continued. The terms were simple but revolutionary. The hegemony would recognize Earth and all Alliance worlds as sovereign and independent. Trade routes would be established based on fair exchange, not exploitation. Technology would be shared rather than used as control. You realize, Kelvan said finally, that accepting these terms will change the fundamental nature of the hegemony. Ambassador Mun nodded. That is precisely the point. 1 week later, Admiral Yoon stood on the observation deck of Deep Blue, watching as ships from 12 different worlds moved in formation with the Black Fleet. Engineers from Earth worked alongside alien technicians, sharing knowledge and adapting technologies. Commander June joined her at the window. The Rigelian delegation arrived this morning. That makes 14 systems now part of the Alliance. Admiral Yoon smiled slightly. And the hegemony? Their council has ratified the treaty. Their empire is transforming into something very different. Commander June paused. They had no choice, really. With so many worlds declaring independence, they're struggling to maintain control over their core systems. Below them, in the underwater hangar, construction had begun on new vessels. These ships would be larger than the original Black Fleet, designed for exploration rather than war. What does Earth do now? Commander June asked. We've changed the galaxy in less than 2 weeks. Admiral Yoon watched as a ship from Tau Ceti moved into formation alongside the Phantom. We build, she said simply. Not an empire like the hegemony, but something better. A true alliance of equals. She turned to face Commander June. For thousands of years, humans dreamed of reaching the stars. Now that we're here, let's make sure we don't repeat the mistakes of those who came before us. In the vastness of space, the Black Fleet led a parade of ships from 14 worlds, a physical manifestation of a new order unfolding across the galaxy, one built not on submission, but on freedom.